A how-to on the audio and visual setup for ASL interpreting at my church. Hi, and welcome to this podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the audio and visual setup for our deaf ministry at my church. My name is Deborah, and thank you for listening. I've been interpreting at my church since August 2021, about 150 messages so far, and I created this podcast to encourage interpreters who are just starting out or maybe are having some challenges. I'm going to discuss 4 or 5 elements in our church that help our interpreting for our deaf and hard of hearing attendees. The first item is the monitor, which is set up at my feet. It's a TV screen facing me where I can see the words, images, and verses that are displayed on the big screen behind me. This is one of the key pieces of equipment. This helps me stay on track, especially with particularly long quotes or verses that the speaker is using in their sermon. Now, along with the TV monitor that sits on the floor by the interpreter chair just to the left, I also have an ear monitor where I hear the songs, words and music during worship, and then the speaker and announcers when the service starts. It's a small 3x5 size plastic case that receives the signal wirelessly. I hook it on the back of my pants pocket, and then connected to it is an earpiece. It's more of a hook, so I actually disconnect that and put in my own Batman plug so that I can hear a little bit better. And I usually wear this for the entirety of the service. Although, depending on who is speaking at times, I might hear the speaker actually better without the monitor in my ear. So when the songs are over, I'll take my plugs out and then just listen normally when I'm interpreting the message. I also have a comment about smoke, which used to be used as an effect during worship. It's a nice effect on screen, but the effect on the interpreters wasn't so great. Some would get headaches. Sometimes I would have to step out of my interpreting area because I was overcome by the smoke. We no longer use that, thank goodness, but I mention it because I see this effect still in some church services. And it's a note for you to be an advocate for yourself and for your deaf and hard of hearing attendees to give some valuable feedback to the stage and audiovisual team in case there's anything that's happening while you're interpreting that limits effective, faithful interpreting for your deaf and hard of hearing audience. You want to approach them as a partner for the overall benefit of the congregation. Be patient but persistent when requesting changes. The next element is an overhead light. Now, our church likes to bring the lights down dark to help focus on worship during the songs, but that also puts me in the dark so the congregants cannot see my interpreting. So there's an overhead light that they will turn on automatically whenever the lights are brought down for the worship time. Another important element in the audio and visual effect is foot traffic. Because our deaf and hard of hearing section is located on one end of the church, we tend to get people walking in front of us with foot traffic, people coming in late. So a barrier was put up recently so that once the service starts, the foot traffic in front of the interpreter stops. As you know, when someone walks in front of the interpreter, the deaf and hard of hearing communication stops for them until the person passes by. One thing that I'm looking for in change at our church is to actually get the feed of just the voices instead of the voices mixed with the music. Whenever a singer stops and has a prayer or a word of encouragement during the song, I actually cannot hear them. The music needs to almost stop in order for me to hear their words. So that's one change that I'm being persistent about and requesting, that I only hear the voices instead of the mix of voices and music during the worship time. So that's our current audiovisual setup. I encourage you to be an advocate for your deaf and hard of hearing attendees. Make the experience the best that they possibly can be. Make your request with a spirit of partnership to your audio and visual team and your stage team. I encourage you to be patient with requesting changes. It took 2 years before we had someone in charge that made the deaf ministry a part of the regular checklist for the audio-visual team. And so now we have our light turned on overhead automatically at the right time. The monitor is always connected, and I haven't had to look for batteries for some time now. The deaf ministry may be new for your church, and so together you can provide a wonderful and stress-free experience with the deaf and hard of hearing that attend. So remember, their world is all day full of people who don't notice or care about their needs, and the church should be one of the places where they don't have to really think about that. This is my new channel, so I'm not allowed to put links in the description, but please reach out in the comments or email me for any questions that you might have. Thanks for listening and have a blessed service. You've been listening to the podcast Deaf Ministry Interpreting Journey. If you would like to connect, feel free to reach out at churchcoach@dokok.com.